The other day I made my first ever pair of doll jeans, and they didn't come out too bad. But the more I looked at them, the more I realized how many mistakes I had made, and I kind of want to try again. So hi everyone, I'm Ward, welcome to my channel Wardrawsalot, and this week we're going to try and make a good pair of doll jeans. There were a number of things wrong with the pair of jeans that I was making. Number one, I didn't give any seam allowance, so when you look at the seams, especially on the inside of the leg, like over here, you see just a mess. It's just a horrible mess. It looks uneven, it looks bad, it just does not translate well. From a distance it looks great, but as soon as you zoom in, you're like, oh wow, there's a lot going on here. First of all, I didn't make the pants long enough, so they're kind of just hanging by the edge of where his underwear would be, which I wouldn't particularly mind normally, especially because of the characters that I draw, but there's an issue when it comes to the dolls. The button was glued on with Elmer's, and that was on my fault. The chain is kind of just sewed in with a regular normal string instead of being in a pocket. When the character sits down, the front is alright. The problem is when you look at him from behind, practically like half his ass is hanging out, right? If there was no underwear there, it would just be straight up booty on the ground, and I wouldn't want that for them. So now that I've gotten together what I know is wrong with the pants, I look back at my reference, which would be the doll pants that came with that Made to Move Ken, I'll put the exact name there, versus the design that I used, which is by a YouTuber on here called MARIDOLL'S, I believe. I will link them down below in the video that I got the step-by-step process from, because they're the ones who basically laid it all out. I just wanted to try it out myself, and the way they did it was perfect. The way I did it, I messed up. So again, they did it wonderfully, and that's why I even used their tutorial for a reference, and it was really nice and step-by-step and detailed. But I'm just a beginner at this, so I'm gonna have a little kinks that I have to work out. For my jean material, I'm going to be using this pair of shorts that are just left around the house from one of my many brothers, and how it hasn't been used in a very long time. So I'm taking that fabric, and I'm going to be using the backside because there's no tears or rips into it, and use that towards the jeans. These have a nice stretch to them, so they kind of give me some room to play with. The piece that I ended up cutting out was around, I'm gonna say 12 by 10, 11 inches, something like that. If you want to call it a foot by foot, then that's perfectly fine too. But I want to just make sure that whatever piece I'm cutting out, I have enough room to fit at least both pant legs within that space, and maybe some extra fabric on the side, just for like any mishaps that might happen. Now, keep in mind that when we are sewing something, we're not going to be sewing it on the side we want facing up, right on the outside. We're going to be sewing on the inside of the fabric, and this goes for any and every fabric. If you want the outside to be one design versus the other, or the other color, whatever, sew the inside, not the outside. Now, what I wanted to do was look at the difference between the pair of pants that the doll came with versus the design that I used, and maybe see if there's a difference between them. And after I measured it out, there was a 1-inch difference between the two pants. Now, when I was trying to figure out where to extend the pants, I should have just done it from one end of the pants. And what do I mean by that? I ended up taking that 1 inch and then splitting it a 1/2 inch upward on the top of the pants and a 1/2 inch downward at the bottom of the pants. And in retrospect, I don't know why I did that. I felt like that would be like on the safe side, but realistically, that was not a good idea. What I should have done is just straight up taking it 1 inch upward, especially putting into the fact that it was too short before on the doll, so that would have helped a little bit better. But again, now I know for future reference. After the measuring, I put down the printable, extended it where I wanted it to be extended, and then I went ahead and outlined it with a red pen. It didn't really matter to me what I was going to be using on the inside of the fabric anyway, because it's not going to be seen. So the red pen was fine with me. You can use anything else, like a Sharpie or like a pastel or something, but it didn't honestly matter to me. and I folded it and then pinned it together so this way it won't move when I'm cutting it. And before I cut the fabric, I made sure to draw a outline on the outside. This is called the seam allowance. What this does is when you sew the pants together or any fabric, it leaves breathing room for when you're sewing, so the stitches won't come out like they did on the first pair of pants that I did, all messed up and you could see it and like the ends of the fabric were hanging out and stuff. So make sure you go ahead and do that, or your work will just look like crap at the end, which like mine kind of did. Now, I know I folded the pants and I pinned them and everything, and that's a good move, but what I failed to realize is that the other pair wasn't marked, and it was kind of confusing for me. So if I come back and watch this video, Ward, please pay attention, okay? Next time, mark for both of the pairs of pants what you want them to look like, and then just cut them both out individually. You went back in and you wrote it anyway on the second pair of pants, which isn't bad, but for less work next time, mark them both individually and then cut them out, at least until you're more experienced in the future and don't need those guidelines. The next part of the tutorial, and again this was from MARIDOLL'S, was that you took a ruler, you kind of marked it in the middle, and you went ahead and took a needle and thread and went ahead and sewed up that line to kind of give it a realistic stitch on the side, which makes sense to me because that's how actual jeans are. Now, as always, when working with needle and thread, be careful because you're gonna end up stabbing yourself with the needle, and that's what happened to me a bunch of times. Even though I have those little thimbles on my fingers, I still end up poking through my skin a few times, so just be careful. I am doing this all by hand stitching. I don't have a sewing machine, mostly because ours broke, and I hate dealing with sewing machines so much. I hate dealing with sewing machines so freaking much, bro. You have no idea. At one point, I was just like the sewing machine fixer for my mom, and I just don't want to do it anymore. So now I just do everything by hand, and I'd rather spend the extra however long by hand than by machine, just for my sense of peace, okay? But if you have a sewing machine, do it with the sewing machine. This will go like 10 times faster. Now, after you've done it to both sides of your pants, I went ahead and flipped it over just so you could get a look and I could get a look, and I thought it was pretty nice. So since I was happy with it, I took the bottom of the jeans and I folded it over so this way I can go ahead and hem it so it's not just a raw edge at the bottom and it doesn't fray. The next part of the pants process, man was this a process. The next part was that you take the pants from where you sewn upwards and fold it in half. Then you're going to take your needle and your thread and you're going to follow up that line of guidance that you kind of traced in from earlier. And I don't know which side of the pants you're supposed to do this on. I just chose one side and I did it upwards and it was fine for the most part. And you sew up to the very edge of where the pant leg stops. Afterwards, you're gonna take some of that excess fabric that's on the side and cut it off just so it's not left there and making it too tight for the doll to wear. You know what I'm saying? Too much excess fabric on the inside is just gonna make it an uncomfortable fit for them. I'm talking like they're humans, but they're not, I swear. Then there's a second stitch that MARIDOLL'S showed. It's kind of like a blanket stitch, but I don't know. I can't teach you that stitch. I was confused myself on just stitching it, and I got it, but there's no way I could explain it properly. They definitely did 100 times better job explaining it, which is why I was even able to replicate it, even though I was lost. For the next part, you're going to take the parts of the jeans where it would be like marked the back and the front, which is like why I made sure to mark them so I knew where they would be, and you're gonna go ahead and sew them together from where the trace out is. Now be really careful when doing this because I accidentally stitched the back side and the front side of the pants together and it came back to bit me in the ass later, and I was so sad. You have no idea. It took me forever just to do that part, and I was so sad when I was like, oh, let's flip the pants around, they look kind of great, and I just see like a massive hole on the bottom of the pants, and I was like, man, come on. Now, just like we did for the bottom pants leg, we're gonna go to the waist of the pants, fold it over, and then sew it along the edge so it doesn't fray or look sloppy in the end. After I finished stitching that last piece, I went ahead and turned the pants inside out so I could get a rough idea of how it looks like, if it needs anything fixed, or if something went wrong. And like I stated earlier, something did go wrong. I sewed the back to the front, and that made a hole in the middle of the pants. And from what you could see right here, that nice little stitch that is just completely missing is because I missed that spot entirely because it was sewn to the wrong place. Now, you can't see it, but my soul crushed here. Everything in me deteriorated because it took me so long. And I felt like straight up ass. I was like, damn, this really happened. And then I went back in off camera and I went ahead and fixed it. It didn't come out too bad, but the stitches were still messed up because of that little seam part. The sides of the pants look great. I love them from the outside, and the inside is just where the crotch would be. It looks kind of weird, and I was like, I don't like the way that looks. But I also didn't want to completely undo the stitch and do it all over again. For some reason, this weird like butterfly looking waist thing was going on too. I don't know why. The pants were still too short from the top, and his booty was still hanging out when he was sitting down. So there's a lot more I still need to fix from these. And I think that's just from me needing to raise it up an entire inch from the top instead of half an inch from the top and half an inch from the bottom. Yet another thing that comes to bite me back in my ass. So that seam was really bothering me, so I took a scrap piece of the jeans that I had and I just straight up hot glued it on. I was going to use fabric fusion, but for some reason last time I used it, the fabric wasn't fusing, so I was like, forget it, let's just use the hot glue gun, and that ended up working really well. It attached it on pretty nicely, and I was actually grateful that could happen, because otherwise I would have had to go back in and redo the whole thing, and I kind of didn't want to, especially because at this point in filming it was like 2 in the morning and I was getting a little sleepy weepy, I'm not gonna lie. So from here, what I wanted to do was make some pockets. Now the issue with making pockets, right, is you're supposed to take that into account before you sew everything into the jeans and you know, do this whole process. So in the future, whenever I want to try and make pockets, I have to remember to cut out that part of the jean before I sew them all together and then wonder why nothing is going right. Now, to be fair, the back pockets didn't give me any trouble at all. They were really easy. You just kind of slap them on with some hot glue and you're done. The front pockets were the problem, because when you're making front pockets, you're supposed to cut a hole out from before you start, then put that excess fabric under it, so it could create that pocket effect. I tried to reverse engineer it, which is, you know, the bad idea, and just kind of cut out a shape from the jeans and then just kind of put and hot glue a pocket on the back of that. Way more work. That was way more work than it should have been. I should have just given up on the idea of having a pocket, but I was so dead set on it and I wanted it so bad. And I was like, you know what, bro, it's okay. We are continuing to learn about this, and this is still something new to us. This is the second time we're doing it. So I mess up this one, it's okay. I can make another pair. More jeans exist in the world. Now, I did try and go in with a Posca pen because, you know, it's paint, it's easy. Bad idea. I don't like it. I actually hated it immediately when I started doing it. But then I was like, wait, hold on. Let's finish it. Let's see what goes on. The more I tried to layer it and go over it, the more I did not like it. So for me personally, the paint idea is not a good idea because I just don't like the way it looks on top of the material. Next time I know just to do what I did this time, which is either cover it up, which I will show you soon, or just stitch it out in the first place. For some reason on the back pockets it didn't bother me as much as it did on the front pockets. I think it's because the front pockets already looked messed up too, so that was like adding more cheapness to it and making it look kind of ugly. So now I know for future reference what I do and do not like when making the doll jeans. Now finally we get to the fun part, and I say fun part now because the rest of it was work up until this point, even though this was work too, but this was fun work. You get what I'm saying? So I originally went in with this like sander to try and give it a cool ripped effect, and don't get me wrong, it was nice looking, but man, I do not have the patience for that at all. I'd have to sit there and scrub for a year for it to look like the way I want to. So I ended up taking this cheap craft knife from Dollar Tree and kind of just ripping back and forth into the jeans until I was happy with what I had, and I was happy with it. Now, remember, please be careful with any crafting knife or scissors or any knife in general. That shit hurts when you stab yourself with it. I'm always cutting, bruising myself, or, you know, all this. I'm never careful, okay? I'm just straight up. I always got cuts and stuff on my arms and all that because I'm never careful with my crafting supplies. Don't be like me. Don't be stupid, okay? Just be careful. Wear, like, the right protection if needed, or go slowly with the process so you don't end up hurting yourself like me over here. After I did all these nice little rips and I was happy with it until I want to come back to it later, I went ahead and made a chain for the pants. Now, this is already a pre-made chain from Walmart, and it comes with little hooks and little, I forgot what they're called, jump rings, with the little jump rings so you could kind of attach it to whatever you need to. You could probably just use something much easier, or you could do it the even harder route and make your own chain, which I've done before too, but I didn't feel like sitting there for like 10 years and making my own chain for a pair of doll pants, right? So I ended up just taking this chain and then kind of putting it together so I could put it into his pockets to make it look like he's got some cool edgy design going on. Now, so far at this point, I was pretty happy with the jeans, but I felt like they were still needing a lot more to it. I tried putting the chain around as a belt, and I didn't like it. I tried thinking, oh, maybe I should add another chain to the other side. Didn't like that either. Looked through my drawers, and I found this lace that I got from Dollar Tree, and I was like, hold on a minute, something's happening here. And I liked the way it looked with the jeans, so I kind of wrapped it around the waist to make it look like a belt slash also fix the fact that it was uneven because it was doing that weird butterfly waist thing. I call it a butterfly waist. I don't know if that's the actual name, but yeah, so I fixed that to even it out, which I liked a lot. Then I kind of wanted to do more with that lace because it just felt out of place to have it there. So I wrapped one piece around the leg pant, which I thought was a cute idea, and then also stuck a piece under the pants as well through the loops to kind of give it that little design there as well. And I like the way that came out a lot, like a lot. So I also took that same lace and I kind of aligned it where the fake stitching was, where I painted it, and like kind of attached it from there, and that looked so much better. My brain immediately like imploded with dopamine because I was like, yes, I got it. I was like, I fixed it. So I did the front pockets, and I also lined up the back pockets with that same lace. For the fake button instead of the acrylic paint again, this time I hot glued a fake pearl that you can get from Dollar Tree or Walmart as the button, and I liked that way better just overall. The back pockets, the bottom stitches around the pockets, again, didn't bother me, but the top I kind of wanted to tie the design back in. And finally, when I did all of this, I was so much happier with these pants and I was ready to show them. Now, to model the pants, at first we have Mannequin. Mannequin was a great help through the entire process. Give him a round of applause. I really appreciate the fact of how these pants look on the doll. I think that it just is a really nice pair of pants personally, and I like how excessive they kind of are. I like excessive clothing, or very trinketed up. What's the word? Accessorized. There we go. There's a lot of accessories. There's a lot going on. I like the fact that you can play around with the pants. You can dress them up or dress them down. I like the chain. This is what the pants look on a made-to-move doll. Now, the reason why I tried it on both is because although Mannequin is a great mannequin, he doesn't move. So I need to try the fabric on characters that move, like this doll right here. The front and the back look great, and then the poses that he can do also look fantastic, which is also why you should test these pants on made-to-move body dolls if you are going to make something like these, so this way you could see that there's enough stretch and that the pants don't look weird or too tight or whatever, and also that it's posable and it's not, you know, just weird looking in the end. Also, the back pockets actually work, so I'm very happy about that. So yeah, thanks for watching, and remember, I love you. Bye!